Hey, I'm Austin with Training Tall, and welcome back to another rowing video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the rowing monitor metrics to help us better understand what the heck a split per 500 meter is, what do watts actually mean, strokes per minute, and how all that applies to maximizing rowing distance, maximizing your interval time, and just getting the most out of your rower. And if you like the video, please leave a like. It really helps me out, and let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comment box down below. And don't forget that I offer a lot of rowing resources, all linked in the description box, including my follow-along rowing workout app, Just Row, that has hundreds of follow-along rowing workouts, you and me working out together, built out in 4- and 8-week programs to help you get the most out of your rower. All right, so we're gonna get right into it. The first thing we're gonna talk about is your SPM, or your S/M, or your strokes per minute. This is one of the most essential metrics to understand on your rowing monitor. And there's a common misconception with the stroke rate, or the strokes per minute, which, by the way, are interchangeable words. And especially in a gym environment or a fitness class environment, very often two people are side by side rowing together, and one is rowing at the same speed as the other person, but one person is getting more distance or generating more watts. And that is because the strokes per minute tells you nothing about how hard or how intensely you're rowing. It's simply the rhythm of the row. And for all my musicians out there, the strokes per minute is just the beats per minute. For an example, if we took a stroke rate of 28 strokes per minute, and you just start rowing at 28, if I don't row with any hard intensity, but I'm just kind of bouncing back and forth here at 28 strokes per minute, you can probably hold this for a pretty long time. But what if I started adding some intensity to 28? Boom, it's the same stroke rate, but you can tell that the intensity changes based off of how much effort I put behind each stroke. And so strokes per minute is simply the rhythm, and does not tell you how hard or how easy your rowing effort is. The same works for low stroke rates. You can row softly and easy at 14 strokes per minute like this, or you could row hard, heavy, and intensely at 14 strokes per minute like this. It all depends on the effort behind the stroke rate, not the stroke rate itself. And that's why we don't think of strokes per minute as rowing speed or how fast you're rowing, but simply what's the rhythm or the rate of your row. To see how fast you're rowing, that's what the 500 meter split is, or the pace per 500 meters, or the split per 500 meters. All three of those are interchangeable. That is the true speed, because it is a metric that is literally trying to tell you how fast your boat is moving through water. As if you were actually rowing on the water, your monitor is telling you how long it would take your boat to row 500 meters of distance at your current intensity. Does that make sense? Just like a fitness watch tells you your pace per mile when you're running, you start running faster, the pace per mile goes lower. It's the same when you row. The harder you row, the more intensely you row, the lower the split per 500 goes. But instead of saying higher or lower split per 500, we just say faster or slower. A 1 minute 45 second 500 meter split is faster than a 2 minute and 5 second 500 meter split. Even though 2:05 is a bigger number, it is slower. And remember, if you get confused, relate it back to the fitness watch telling you your pace per mile, how fast you're running when you're running outside. Or just imagine your boat rowing on the water and your boat physically moving distance on the water. Now, watts is a measure of intensity, just like the pace per 500 meters is a measure of intensity. But with watts, since it's a measure of power generated, the harder and more intense that you row, the higher the watts go, and the less intense that you row, the lower the watts go. The reason why most professional rowing teams and most professional rowing athletes use the 500-meter split instead of watts is because a 500-meter split has a lot less variability than watts does. Because with watts, you could generate as little as, I don't know, 10 watts, 3 watts, but you can generate upwards of over 1,000 watts if you're a real strong professional rowing strength athlete. From 0 to thousands, there's so much variability in between, whereas with a pace per 500 meters, you could probably row a pace as slow as, maybe around 4.5 or 5 minutes per 500. But then as far as actual fastest speeds go, up to about a minute, minute 15 pace per 500. Do you see what I'm saying? There's not as much variability, and so when you're doing long rowing workouts, looking at a split per 500 meter is a lot easier to maintain and be consistent with compared to watts, which are constantly micro-changing every single stroke. So my advice for your shorter sprint style rows, pay attention to your watts, and for your longer, more endurance style rows, pay attention to your split per 500. Okay, now to tie all this together, to boost your rowing IQ, you have to understand that the watts that you generate, or the pace per 500 meter that you row at, is a combination of stroke rate and effort per stroke. There is no metric on a monitor that is truly measuring your effort per stroke, but it's essentially how hard you take the stroke. And so depending on how hard you take the stroke, the effort, and how many strokes per minute you're taking, your stroke rate, that's going to net you your pace per 500 or your watts. So I think the best way to understand this is to give a couple examples. Here's an example of high stroke rate but low effort. I'm rowing at a high stroke rate, but I'm not putting a lot of effort in the drive of my stroke. I'm not pushing back very hard. And so because of that, even though my stroke rate here is about 36 strokes per minute, my watts are only about 200 or so, and my pace per 500 is only about a 143. But if I row that 36 strokes per minute with hard effort and intense effort, now my watts are over 500, and my pace per 500 is more like a 115. And that's because I'm putting more effort behind the 36 strokes per minute. Same with low stroke rates. If I'm rowing at a low stroke rate, but not a lot of effort like this, just a nice Sunday leisurely row. My stroke rate is low. My pace per 500 is about a 3-minute 30. My watts are at about 50. But if I take this same low stroke rate and add effort behind the stroke, controlling the way back up, now my watts are around 300. My pace per 500 is around a 135, but my stroke rate is still a nice low 16. Does that make sense? And so the real trick is trying to find the optimization behind your stroke rate and your effort per stroke to optimize certain distances. This is why you'll see a lot of professional rowers row 2,000 meters somewhere between 32 and 38 strokes per minute, because that's just enough rate where their effort per stroke allows them to maximize their cardio ability. If they rowed the 2,000 meters at 24 strokes per minute, they can't physically put enough effort behind a stroke rate of 24 to maintain the incredibly fast split per 500s that they hold. And so the nitty-gritty specifics of what stroke rates and effort per stroke is best for each distance, that's still kind of all up in the air, and it depends on person to person, body height, age, gender, a gazillion things. But I hope this video could help clear up some of the confusion about the metrics on the rowing monitor, to give you a better example of what your watts are, what a pace per 500 is, and what really the strokes per minute, SPM, S/M, what all that means. And all I can hope for is that this helped to boost your rowing IQ just a little bit, so that way the next time you hit your rower, next workout, and for all your workouts in the future, you're feeling a little bit more confident in your rowing ability. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, please let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Check out my app, Just Row, or my rowing ebooks, or sign up with a form review so we can work one-on-one on your rowing form so you can row the best spanking rowing form you can do. Thanks again for watching. I will see you in the next video.